Hey, welcome back to Flying Colors. It's been some time. I know I've been talking about wanting to rekindle this podcast, but unfortunately, since I was traveling and since I had other things to do, it was quite difficult to do so. In the end, Heather is not joining me, but that doesn't mean that Flying Colors is not going to move forward. I'm going to continue doing this podcast, and the podcast will have a clearer focus. This one will now focus on students and young professionals and helping them to make more informed career and life decisions. That has always been something that I really am passionate about. That's what I do as a career coach as well and as a mentor. And it took me some time, honestly, to find that focus for this podcast. And now in every episode, this will be basically the great mission, so to speak, or the vision of this podcast, and therefore look forward to more interesting episodes. And I hope that these episodes are helpful for you and give you great insights on what choices, opportunities you have in life and in your career. So looking forward to the first episode now with Andres, and see you soon. Hey, what's up?
Hey man, good to see you.
Good to see you too. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for inviting me and thanks for having me here.
Yeah, no, excited for honestly this talk, conversation, discussion, interview, whatever you want to call it. Thanks so much for having the time, honestly, to do so. How have you been?
Good. I actually got to sleep in today, so I woke up at 6 instead of I've been pushing to wake up at 5 because of I'm starting at the marketing job actually on Monday, and it starts at 8:30 in the morning, and so my current routine, which is like waking up at 6, doesn't really function that I need to leave the house by like let's say 7:50 to be able to make it on time or earlier. So I'm like trying to adjust for like the past 2-3 days, waking up at 5 and see how that works. But man, that hour difference is so tough. It's like it's like I'm trying all over again. I wake up and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. But yeah, today I slept in.
And so, what is your routine exactly?
Well, right now waking up either 5 or 6. I take like 15, 20 minutes just to get ready in the morning, meaning like put on my gym clothes, put on my contacts, drink some water, and then just head out to the gym for like at least 45 minutes to an hour. I've been spoiled because here in this gym that I just signed up to here in Florida, man, the US. So you finish your workout and you have like a steam room, and then you can also go tan if you want. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, so many options. So I've been doing like
Yeah.
the sauna, the infrared sauna right after I work out. So I've been like an extra 20 minutes. Then after that, I come home, get ready, protein shake, and then breakfast.
Yeah.
That's it.
Sounds like a good routine. And this is actually, I think, um, one of the things that kind of are where I always see you as kind of like a good role model. You're always very, when it comes to routines and habits, you really stick to them and kind of have established, you have like a certain discipline to follow these routines and habits. And I think discipline is in the end what makes the difference between someone who has the goal of sticking to a routine or falling out of the routine.
I think around 21 or so. So I left my house living with my parents around 18 because I've always like admired my mom, and she went to the US to when I was 10, and she didn't know anybody. She didn't speak English. She didn't know, besides Spanish. And she came to the US and started working, basically hustling for us. So at 18, I remember seeing this, and I'm like, my mom did it. I speak English, I speak Spanish. I'm young. I have all of these opportunities, so I did that. But when I was 21, I remember I had a good friend of mine who gave me a book called The Wealthy Barber, and I read it, and I started getting more interested in reading because I was never into books. I was always just video games, and I have to work now. I was a server at 18, so I didn't really care about much besides surviving, but it wasn't like I was chasing more than that. And so I think around 20 or 21, my friend gave me that book, and it was like really interesting to start learning about finances and um, the future and everything that you can create. And so I started thinking, well, what else can I really, how can I really get this? Because I don't think I'm going to be able to get all of this wealth, building a retirement plan, house, getting a house, or anything like that by just being a server my whole life. So I started thinking more about what can I really do to get there. And again, that's when I started changing my mentality as to like I think really the change has to do more with myself than looking for a better job or chasing something like that. And yeah, I think like there was just something in my mind that just switched, like just clicked. And I remember like going to work, instead of listening to music, I was listening to like motivational like speeches. And man, it was like going to work, coming home from work, listening to that. I was showering with freaking Alexa playing just those motivational speeches, to the point that my girlfriend at the time was like, "Why do you always like having men yell at you?" I'm like, "It's not that. It's the message that they're sharing. It's that's." So because motivational speakers can be very intense sometimes. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, man, and it was just trying to surround myself, or my mentality, my mind, and everything that I listen to, with that mentality of like, listen, sometimes you have to push forward. Times are always tough, but you have to move past that. And yeah, I think that's one of the first times that I think that I felt like something clicked, that I need to start building discipline in order to achieve the things that I want.
And what is something that basically, I don't know how to ask that really. Like what helps you, would you say, that keeps up this discipline? How do you call it? This being disciplined or staying disciplined. Do you have anything like where you say, huh, this is something that I need in order to stay focused and stay on track with things?
Yeah, I think, like I said, thinking about who I want to be as a person, that really helps me stay on track. It's like in the mornings, I have the option to get up or not. I mean, we all have the choices, right? But it's like when I start asking myself, who do I want to be as a person? Who do I want to be as a human being? And is that person really going to get me to where I want to be? Because we got to where we are in life being who we are. But if you want to achieve more, we have to become more than who we are today. It's like it's so simple, but it's also very difficult, because you have to build what are the things that you're lacking to be able to get to where you want to be. But then also you have to think about goals. You have to think about setting the direction that you want to go to. But ideally, what really helps me moving forward is remembering who I want to be. So it's really picturing from the future versus where I am right now, and saying, okay, here I am and I'm going to go there. That helps sometimes. But I think for me, right? Thinking from the future and saying that's who I want to be, and how would that person or how would that future me react in this moment, and then follow that direction. Because if I behave how I think my future me will behave, ideally I will land where future me is. Future and past and all of this can be confusing, but it's just what works for me. Trying to plan
Sure.
from the future and trying to plan from a world of possibilities, because the future is really for you to create. If you start planning from the past, if you start planning even from the present, you have all the circumstances that have like influencing your thoughts. Or you might see, well, I don't have this right now, so maybe I should get that. So if you think about that, that's thinking or planning from scarcity, versus
Hmm.
the future, where you can literally just picture, I don't know, whatever you want. A Ferrari, great. How can I get that? And you start backtracking from that future. And like that future is full of possibilities. It's for you to create. So that's the way I see it. And that's the way usually that helps me stay consistent on my discipline. It's thinking about who I want to be.
Hmm.
Long answer,
And
but
no, it's perfect. Honestly, I think I don't know how many people would think about it that way. I think people have always goals, and they have, like, let's say, a good image of who they might want to become, but working towards it is something that is challenging for them. Or rather, maybe they don't even have a good image about who they want to be in the future, and they just focus on the goals that they want to achieve, like
and that's fine
goals like, I
too.
don't know, obtaining a PhD, right? Kind of,
And that's
or
fine too, because I think goals are also important to get. Like it gives you a sense of direction,
yeah.
right? And I've done that before I even became like who I am now. I remember writing down goals and on a whiteboard and doing each one of them. I think I missed like one of them for like on the course of a year, but that helps as well, because you have the sense of direction of where you want to go. But I think that's also very limited, because you're creating those goals based usually about something that you want, because it's missing there. And
Hmm.
so uh, again, it's just matter of perspective or the context that you want to give to things. There's no right or wrong way to approach how you want to plan for the future. That's completely up to you.
Hmm.
That's just what works for me. Thinking it in a way of possibilities versus, I don't have this right now, I should get that maybe.
I find that actually the hardest. So, to give you an example, I personally know who I want to be in the future, but I do have also certain goals that I want to achieve in life. Like, I don't know, obtaining a PhD, or I don't know. One of the goals was in the past, like learning how to dive. I mean, we met on a diving trip, so that was kind of
My
achieved.
first
And
time diving too, man. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I remember that you were snorkeling around and you like totally got into it somehow. But that's kind of, I feel like for many, the confusion, there's so many things that they could focus on and so many things that they have in front of them that they don't know where to start. And there are, on the other hand, some people who have a very clear focus, like, okay, I want to become a PhD, a researcher, and it's kind of like a clear path for them. And everything outside of that path, they kind of, I would say, neglect or even ignore. But they will always kind of achieve the goal that they want to have, and they continue doing that kind of goal and living that kind of life. But I think more people are actually in this kind of like, oh, I want to achieve so many things, and making sense of that and streamlining it to one specific path is difficult.
Oh yeah. I think it could be overwhelming because you're looking for an answer that's probably not there. There is no answer of to, like, again, each person has like their own journey that they need to go through, and I think that that journey that they want to take is also up to them. They can choose to be goal oriented, or they can choose to explore. And frankly, I'm more on the explore aspect as well, man. Like, my background in education, it's in film and music. When I was in 8th grade, I remember telling mom, I'm going to be an architect. Yay. My son is going to be an architect. It's going to be a great career. 11th
My son
11th
is going to be saved.
grade
Like,
comes, and then I'm like into music, and then I got to pursue music and film. Completely different what I wanted. I mean, my mom still supported me. She just wanted me to be able to, do something that I wasn't able to in Colombia. So, and then after that, like, I went into being a waiter, and then um, it's still technically not pursuing any career in music and film. But then after that, I was like, after reading the book, I want to know how to buy a house. So I got my real estate license because I thought that would be the best way to learn about that. So then I went into real estate, and then I did that for 4 years. And then when I was doing that, COVID came, and I'm like, you know what? Let me try something else, because selling homes right now, it's kind of tough. In real estate, you have to be in the game for a very long time in order to succeed very, very well, right? It becomes about people who you know and who knows you, that what you do. And so I started my own marketing company with a co-founder, and she has the expertise. She has a master's in international business, international marketing. Again, my background, music and film. But what I learned from being a waiter, what I learned from being a salesperson as a real estate agent, was communication, right? Sales and all of this. So that was my skill that I was bringing up to this. And so in spite of not being able to have one focus or career that I was just completely chasing, I think I was able to grab and learn from different industries and kind of shape that into my expertise, right? Like right now, the job that I'm actually starting next Monday has to do with marketing strategy, but something I would never learn or obtain if it was not because of the journey that I've gone through so far. And the best thing is that you get to choose how to manage and mold those experiences that you've created for yourself. And in between, of course, of all of these jobs, man, I did filming, I've done photography, freelancing. Uh, I took courses in college or university on Photoshop. I self-taught or took a semester of coding, so I knew like HTML, CSS. I learned the Adobe Cloud, not only because of film, but I was curious on like illustrations and like InDesign. And so I just finished a project for an ebook. So again, I'm still doing freelancing work because I think it's interesting and polishing and learning many things. And I still don't know exactly where I want to go, regarding career-wise, right? I think everyone has the goal of financial freedom, and it's a great goal to have. It can be attained many ways. You can start a business. As a business could be successful, you can create something and invent it, and then sell it and become a millionaire like that. Like, there's so many ways nowadays that you can achieve what you want. It's just a matter of choosing a path that you want to follow and feel comfortable doing it. There's no right answer. I'm choosing to take it day by day, making the best out of it for sure, but still with the focus of financial freedom, because I think that's very important for everyone. I'm 28 right now, just to give a perspective of like age and goals. And I do have goals as well. Like my one of my goals is like, let's retire by 35. And
Yeah.
by retire, I mean, like, just not worry about money, being able to chase something else like music, and not worry about like, well, where's my next picture gonna come?
Man, that's so extremely powerful, honestly. I think, yeah, people are always looking at, they exactly go to personal development books or YouTube channels, or they watch videos on these topics on how to find their passion, how to find their life goals, and or how to create the life that they want. And kind of sometimes forgetting that it's about, and this is something that I kind of drew from you, what you said, live the life how you want it to be right now, and how you want it to be in the next 5 years or 10 years, whatever you imagine happen in the future. It's kind of like following a little bit your curiosities and interests, and being open to take
Yeah,
different paths if you're interested in doing that, right? Like,
yeah,
as you said, you started out with film and music, and now you're in marketing and business, so to speak, and you started your own companies as well. um, Something that I assume you haven't thought of when you started your degree in film and music, right?
definitely not. Definitely not. But I think that comes from just me wanting to live my life in curiosity. I'm a very curious person, and I just love learning. And so anytime that I had the opportunity to learn, to lean in into something new and to explore it, I would try to do it and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, then you move past it. But of course, you have to make sure you learn from the lesson as well. And I think I
Hmm.
shared this with you before, Bastian, that like I've learned more about my failures and losses than from like my successful and like great places or times where I was like, oh, I'm making money. No, it's great, but I've learned more from those losses and failures.
And would you care to share one of these failures or losses, Andres, in your
Yeah,
life?
let's see. There's so many of them. I'm a
You can
loser.
pick one, like the biggest for you, that you've taken the most lessons learned out of.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna need a
If you have
minute
to
to think
pick
about
one.
that. Well, you see, the thing with me is that I don't think there's always one big loss. I think that for me, because of the character of who I am as a person, I lose something, and I'm like, all right, fuck it. Excuse my French. Just move forward and like, what went wrong there that I could try to learn from that. So, for example, my co-founder and I, we tried to start a application in New York City that would help vegetarians and vegans basically find places where they could go eat to promote that lifestyle at a discount. And so we were getting restaurants signed on, we had a website, and then we were thinking how to scale it. And so we are like, well, we kind of need funds for this. So we thought, well, should we start looking for investors? And this was just fairly early in our career when we had already had our marketing agency going, but it was, I think, maybe 6 to 9 months live, maybe about a year already. So we were still fairly new, and we're still fairly new to the entrepreneurship. And so we were like, oh, we don't want to give equity away. It's greed sometimes that gets in the way. Or we're just not thinking ahead, or just not very experienced in the whole business world. Like, it's something that you have to learn or associate yourself with and read about. And so eventually we kind of gave up on that project, and we realized, well, maybe for next time, equity, comes and goes anyways, and you can always make it back. But if you want to build something, you have to be able to give something too. So
Hmm.
that's what we learned from that. We started a clothing company as well, which you're aware of as well. We had some shirts. We had it was on demand, so it's nothing that we were putting too much money out of our own pocket. Uh, and it was going well for a few months, but I think what went wrong on that actually was that we started balancing too many things. We were having our marketing agency that was still getting clients, and we had a small team of maybe 3 to 4 people at a time, but we're getting clients. We're trying to expand. We're trying to do more work. Then we had that project that we were working on at the same time with the application. And then we were trying to build this other clothing line, and we're like, oh my God, we have so many things going on. What do we focus on? Well, this one's making the most money. Maybe we should just focus on that, which is the marketing agency. And so
Hmm.
from that, eventually we let go of the clothing company as well, because it's starting to bleed. So we're like,
Hmm.
okay, let's just go. I still have the shirts. I wear them all the time. I love them. And so I kind of got like not free merchandise, but you know what I mean. Um, and yeah, so what I learned from that is be able to focus also on one thing at a time, where you're able to sustain that business first. And then maybe if you can have someone else manage that, then you can step back and work on another venture, versus thinking you can spread yourself. What I learned from that was that, sometimes maybe learning how to have someone take over a business or manage something first for you, hire a manager or director, and then you can step back and then work on something else and then develop it until you're able to do the same thing there, right? Instead of thinking you can do it all, instead of thinking you can do everything and do this and do that, and we're like 32 hours a day because we only 24 hours anyways. So yeah, I think that's something that I learned from that. And I think you can also learn a lot, not even from businesses and losses, but also when friendships or relationships, get lost. I think that you can realize and take a step back and also think about who you were being in that relationship or friendship that caused it to also not stay the way that you thought it would stay as. So losing that as well sometimes can be a blessing in disguise. So thinking about that as well, it's always really good to reflect.
You learn a lot of lessons about yourself usually because we tend to, as human beings, reflect on the relationship that we had. And we see then the things that, well, at the beginning, probably all the bad things about us. And then we change it to slowly also realizing, hey, we actually weren't that bad of a partner or whatever, friend. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think making or having these losses or these failures is kind of important. And you know what you've mentioned is all like this whole concept of doing too many things at the same time, right? And working 32 hours a day. um, I think it's sometimes also quite important for anyone, like really, if they're ambitious and they have so many ideas that they want to put into action, that to do that kind of, because if I would ask you, probably you can tell me so many lessons learned that you've taken from small mistakes, or I mean mistakes and failures, right? From that, because you grow as an individual, you grow as a professional, a leader, as a business person, and you realize then you come to the realization that you can't manage all of these things simultaneously. It can't work out that way in no possible way, except maybe if you're having all the resources available to you, like people and money. But if you're not coming from that kind of background, then it's almost impossible, and you can only realize these things by having done them in the first place,
Yeah.
right?
And listen, I love being transparent. Like, I feel like I've had to start over multiple times. And like, so fairly recently, like our business, our marketing agency, as we stopped focusing on that, my co-founder and I basically both parted ways to try to find other ways to sustain ourselves because our company was doing well. It was surviving, but it was not thriving to the point that we were like, okay, we want to be able to get more out of life, out of just surviving. So the marketing agency, for example, allowed us to travel the world, and that's how we met in Panama, and it was great.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, awesome, we got great experiences, but again, it wasn't growing to the point of where we wanted to be as human beings. So my co-founder got a full-time job. She backed away a little bit from the business. I'm starting a job on Monday, but we still have the company on the side. So that's going to be really interesting how we're going to manage that. But when I was meaning to like having to start from scratch, sometimes that's just what you got to do. And what I've learned from everything that I've done, the mistakes, and like I said, try to handle everything. I still want to do a lot of things, right? And so, but what I took away was that focusing on basically on steps at the time. Right now, the first step was be able to land that job and be able to create that stability that can create from having maybe a 9 to 5. I think Oprah Winfrey sometimes excuse me. I think Oprah Winfrey said once, do what you have to do until you can do what you want to do. And so I think that's also very powerful. And so right now, I think what I need to do is work a 9 to 5, let's say, for another year or two, while I focus on the next step, which is for me is actually start building my own real estate portfolio, have the experience. And that's what I went to. That's why I got my license for my own well-being, to why I wanted to build my own portfolio, not help other people do it and do business. So I already have a plan set for that. Like, once I get my stability, I'm not only like in the States, it's a little easier to, buy a house because you get the mortgages and all of this free money. Yeah, but I've also, because of my experiences, I've been able to meet some very interesting people, some great friends, and built amazing friendships to the point that I'm like, they're business people and they might be interested in hearing a value proposition. So I'm thinking my next step is actually approaching them with the value proposition of building and creating an overall a real estate portfolio where I can just build capital and borrow private capital in order to pay it back as well. And I can do this because I have now the knowledge and I understand the numbers and I understand how it works. Really, all I'm missing is just me taking that action, which I know I can do it. It's just a matter of being patient enough to where I can take that next step. Like I know what I have to do. I just need to be patient to be able to finalize step one, which is the stability. Now that means I'm staying in this wonderful house, but I need to find another place in November. So, I need to find that stability and then build to the next one. So I want to do so many things, but again, because what I've learned, it's take one thing at a time, build it, and then move on to the next one.
Yeah. And I mean, you're going to now move to a stable job again, which, well, as you said at the very beginning, like it will be a new challenge now again, like simultaneously handling a business. And you would have never come to the point where you realize that you want to build your own portfolio in that sense now if you wouldn't have had these experiences before, right? And so
Yeah.
that's always quite fascinating how life kind of continues moving forward, so to speak. And I think at the very, like you just mentioned, a very, very important point. We can have so many goals and things that we want to achieve in life. However, there's always a certain or right time for it. So for instance, if you set the goal of I take diving again since that's how we met. I knew like in already during my bachelor's degree, for example, that I want to do and take a diving license because I was so fascinated about it. But if you in that moment, if you have the same goal and you don't have the money, the resources for doing that, well, that doesn't matter that you can't achieve it 5 years or 10 years ahead of you, right? There will always be a new opportunities that or new resources that will allow you to achieve these goals, achieve these things that you want to do.
Practicing patience.
Yeah, patience
That's what it is. Yeah. It's difficult because I think we've also learned to have everything so fast and so convenient. Like just look at Amazon, 2-day shipping. Wow, I can get something from
Love it.
anywhere and just get
Yeah.
it 2 days later, or even a day sometimes. When I was in Russia, before this whole thing went on, I was there for 3 months, and they have something called Ozone, which is basically like their Amazon, and you could order something the same day and get it within like 3 to 4 hours. It's that effective. But so I'm just like, we've been built now to get fast rewards, which is why I think most people admire so much people who are like so disciplined and focused in the future, because now it's so much more harder to focus on long-term goals than getting that instant gratification.
Yeah.
It's like having
And
ice
being
cream.
surrounded by it, right, the whole time, instant gratification. I mean, we can have it all the time on our phones. It's tricky to avoid it sometimes, and that's then also playing back into being disciplined.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And so there's one more thing that I find quite remarkable about you when it comes to your personality or characteristics, I guess. It's this kind of how you see failure as an opportunity rather than, well, as a failure. And I think that's sometimes also people are afraid of doing mistakes and doing failures, right? I mean, it's definitely smarter, I guess, to fail less or avoid mistakes as much as possible if we are aware of them and if we can avoid them in some way. But all of us will eventually do a mistake or fail in some ways or another. But there are also some people who just stand still and basically they don't want to
Fail.
increase the chance of increase the risk, so to speak, of failing. But there's this kind of really important realization that I think everybody should come to in the end in life, that it will bring you farther, and it's usually an opportunity to learn and move forward and become a better person or do something better in the end, right? And so that's something I just thought, that is a thought that came through while talking to you, that I find quite remarkable about you.
Thank you, man. Thank you. It's something that I've practiced, and yeah, it's not easy always going to start a new venture and say, yeah, let's fail, because that's never what business, right? You never go into business thinking, yeah, let's fail a couple of times and see what comes out of it. No, I'm not saying it's easy. It's just that when it does happen, it's up to you to decide what you're gonna make out of it. You can dwell
Mm,
over it and cry about it, but it's also not going to do anything for you. It's the same thing if you, I mean, you might as well do the best thing you can, which is learn from it.
mm.
I love
Ex-
sharing this anecdote or this metaphor, sharing about how lobsters grow. I think I've shared this with you before, have I?
Yes, I've
So
heard the story.
I love it. I love sharing it because it gives a clear understanding, at least in my perspective, as to what it does. So the way lobsters grow, for those who haven't listened or don't know, lobsters are a very mushy animal that when it has an exoskeleton, and so as it's growing, the exoskeleton doesn't grow with him. So he kind of let go of the exoskeleton of his shell. He goes, hides underneath a rock, grows another one. And so if you take this into like the metaphor is that it's only in as human beings that when we are under extreme pressure, that we need to let go of that hard shell and become vulnerable and to the environment. It's only in those moments of vulnerability that we're able to grow.
Mm.
And I think that's just beautiful.
It is beautiful.
And this is
Yeah.
why I love sharing about my failures. I love sharing about being vulnerable sometimes. And because I think vulnerability has grown to be observed also as a very powerful thing in the past few years. I think before people were like, oh, you cannot show vulnerable if you're planning to be a leader. No, I think that vulnerability can also help you connect with people. So I forgot where I was going with that. Sorry, but yeah, vulnerability.
But you're right. I think the vulnerability part is really important because you can then start to connect with people. And if you're an empathic person, you can also put yourself into the shoes of others. I think everyone has that kind of ability to some extent. Some have more, have the ability more so, others less. That's fine. But everyone has the ability to kind of feel some of the emotions the other person might feel
Can
when
I add
we
something
share
to that?
vulnerabilities.
That you said,
Yeah, sure.
people have more than others. I think at the end of the day, it's just the ability that maybe some people have to practice that. The more you
Sure.
practice something, the better you'll become at it. I think it's like if you practice being empathetic or if you practice being understanding, the more you practice it, the more you can become that. It's like
Sure.
you cannot expect to be great at playing basketball the moment you pick up a basketball. It's absurd. If you if you're never if you're not good at math, it's well maybe because you never study, right? And if you study, you'll become great. Doesn't mean you become a mathematician, but unless you want to, and then you get into that. But it's like everything is practice.
Mm.
My discipline has become a practice. Every morning, it's an opportunity for me to practice it. It's that for me, it's that simple. It's like, well, it's another day to practice discipline. It's another day to practice something else.
As you fight against your sleepy self, right?
Yeah, it's a battle. It's a battle for
Mm.
sure.
I think you're absolutely right. I think everyone has the ability to become better at these things. Let it be empathy or let it be a skill. What plays into it is environment, of course, because how you have grown up or what's people you surround yourself with, of course you can always change that, but I think these kind of environmental factors play into it and make it so much harder to for some people to kind of say, okay, I'll become a more empathetic person if you actually need to fight for your survival, let's say, every day. I mean, there are people who live in that kind of environment in some ways, right? So
I have
I
to
think
say
you're right.
something about that because I didn't
Yeah,
grow up
go
in
ahead.
a household that's like privileged or anything. Like I lost my father when I was 3. My mom had to basically come to the US when I was 5, but I was still in Colombia with my sister. And so between the ages of 5 and 10, man, I was moving around with people. Sometimes I didn't even know who was taking care of me. I was,
Mm,
sexually abused as a child. I was, physically abused as a child. But it's like yeah, these environments are environments that can break a lot of people and you can get stuck in that. It's a very difficult situation, circumstances to get out of, right? But you also have to understand that as a child, there's only so much you can control. You're just learning to relate to your emotions. You're just learning so many things. And out of those circumstances, sometimes it's where we get this beliefs that we're not good enough or we're not, why did this happen to me? Why me? Well, the thing is that, well,
mm,
as a child, unfortunately, these kind of emotions, as we're learning just about them, we attach to them first. And so unless we're able to go back to them as adults where we actually fully develop and cognitive about our emotions and able to really describe them, that we're like, okay, it's not because I wasn't good enough that this whole situation happened to me. It's just something that happened, and the meaning that I gave to it was that. But it's not true. When you realize that, man, that your past does not make you, you're liberated from it. And the circumstances that are surrounding you, they can be tough, but as long as you can make a different environment in here, dude, you have so much potential ahead of you to do anything and be whoever you want to be in life. So the environment, yeah, it plays a strong role, but it's the one that you get to create. It's also your perspective. I have this friend who I played the other song, this song out loud, like "Don't Worry, Be Happy," and the first thing she says, "I hate this song," and I'm like, "How could you hate that song? It's such a happy song." She's like, "Well, I was actually going through some very tough times, and this song just seemed so redundant and just like it didn't seem to be working." And I'm like, "Wow." It's just the power of context that you have, because I hear the song and it's like, wow, it's such a happy song. I'm like, na 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 na, right? It's don't worry. And it's just the context that you can create. And again, the meaning that you give to things is what really is going to shape your perception of that.
Very true. Very true. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's
Yeah, man,
also very,
it's
very powerful.
of course.
Since we are already at your younger self, if you could go back in time and give your younger self advice, what would it be?
Let's see. I want to say keep going, but it's not really an advice. It's just like keep going. It's like I'm cheering for you. I don't know. Advice be oh man, advice. Hmm. The first thing that comes to mind is actually be grateful. Because I think in spite of the circumstances, man, being grateful for the things that have happened to you have led you to be where you are and have led you to build that strength, that mental strength, that emotional strength, and that physical strength to some extent that has built that base for the person and character that I am. I practice gratitude every day, man, and that would be my biggest lessons. Gratitude has such a big, powerful motion to it. Like there are days when I'm so grateful, I just want to hug people. I was like, man, I'm so grateful you're in my life. Thank you so much. And it makes everything so much better. And so the reason I practice gratitude in the mornings primarily is because I believe that kind of like Gary Vaynerchuk is that you can start your day with gratitude, and then whatever happens through the day, you already have such a strong emotion of gratitude that it's like, oh, okay, well, that didn't go well. That's fine. So be grateful. I think that's the advice that I would give. Be grateful and be patient.
Can I ask you quickly, how do you practice gratefulness or gratitude
Gratitude?
rather?
I have a gratitude journal. I write on it. I forgot. I saw this one online, but it could be literally any piece of paper, and just say I literally write I'm grateful for, and it could be literally anything. I'm grateful for my body. I'm grateful for my cup of coffee this morning. I'm grateful for the glass of water. I'm grateful for the air that I breathe in my lungs. And the thing is that it's these little things that sometimes you don't really take into account. But I think that's also what makes it so powerful, because you're literally being grateful for everything. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my friends. I'm grateful for my experience while diving. I'm experienced that I almost drowned, but I survived. Like gratitude, it's so powerful. It can lead to like a lot of places and can help you understand a lot of things, I feel.
I get that. Grateful for the morning cup of coffee for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure you love the cup of coffee, especially Dunkin' Donuts, right?
Oh yeah. Thank you. Yes. And if you, I mean, if you feel like you're in that position, but what would you give as a recommendation or advice to students or young professionals who are kind of just starting out their career?
Yeah. Listen to yourself. Don't be afraid to chase something that you feel like it's right for you. I think that oftentimes we listen to our families and they have the right intentions for us, But at the end of the day, I feel like it's only really you who knows what is it that you want out of life. And if you want to explore, I don't know, graphic design, music, whatever it is, or even architecture, law, whatever it is really that it sparks that light in you and you get passionate about because you love reading, you love music, you love drawing, you love whatever you do, man. I think that's something that should be worth exploring. And realize that again, we have a lot of time to always go back to it. Like we have people nowadays live up to like 90, 100. Yeah, you might not have the energy back then to try new things, as many things as you probably do now. But it's also why you should be exploring so many aspects of your life and so many careers. Again, marketing is pretty interesting to me, so that's why I'm exploring that right now. But who knows what it will be like in a year or two? But also,
Yeah,
just
maybe it changes, right?
responsible for
Yeah.
it. What's that?
Yeah, maybe it changes, right? Who
Yeah, it
knows?
changes. You also might get a family and you get a partner who might be into something else, and maybe you want to build something with them as well. And then that's how you start a business. And then you become an entrepreneur. Who knows? Like,
Mm.
be open. I think that's the best advice I can give. Be open to opportunities because you
And when it comes to, so if people want to, for example, reach out to you, what's the best way to do so?
yeah, I'm always happy to talk to people on Instagram. Just follow me on Instagram. I think I'll send that over to you so you can, if anything, put it on the comments or anything.
Will do.
Email, if they're in the States, give me a call. I'm really open. I'm always happy to have conversations with people. I reconnected recently with a friend that I met in high school, so over like 10 years ago already. And we started talking, and it's like, wow, it's crazy how we have so many experiences, and now we can reconnect again. So Instagram, maybe not Facebook, but email, phone, whatever they want. LinkedIn.
Sure.
I'm always happy to have a
Okay.
conversation.
I'll definitely leave it in the description below, so or wherever it's going to be. If it's on LinkedIn, it's in the post. But definitely, then I'll tag you so that people can reach out to you if they're interested. Andres, thanks so much for being on the show. Really appreciate it. I think, as said, you give some really great advice, have some powerful insights, and are definitely an inspiration for lots of people who will listen or watch this video, I would say, afterwards. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Bastian, Sonny. It's an honor to be able to share and share my experience